Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Superintendents Unplugged, In Depth with Davis, the podcast where we'll dive deep into the world of educational leadership. I'm your host, Addison Davis, and I'm thrilled to have you join me as we embark on the inspiring journey together. As a superintendent once myself, I understand the challenges and complexities that come with leading a school district. But what I've come to realize is that there's abundance of amazing work being done by superintendents all across our country. This podcast is a platform to shine a spotlight on their incredible accomplishments and innovative approaches. Each episode will bring you exclusive interviews and superintendents from various districts across our country, both big and small, urban and rural, as they share their personal stories, triumphs, and even their moments of vulnerability. We will explore the strategies they employ to tackle the ever-evolving landscape of education, from fostering equity and inclusivity to embracing technology and preparing students for their future. But this podcast isn't just about showcasing success. It's about fostering a community of educational leaders who can learn from one another, share their experiences, and collectively navigate the complexities of our role. We'll discuss the tough topics as well, the difficult decisions, and the innovative solutions that are transforming education for the better. So while you're an educator, a parent, a student, or simply someone who's passionate about education, this podcast is for you. Superintendents Unplugged is your behind-the-scenes pass to the world of educational leadership, where we uncover the stories that inspire, motivate, and empower every one of us. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and entertained as we embark on this incredible journey together. I can't wait to introduce you to the remarkable superintendents who are changing the educational landscape one district at a time. Episode of In Depth with Davis, Superintendents Unplugged. I'm here today in Glendale, California at the Age of Learning Educational Summit, where they're bringing some of the greatest minds around the nation to be able to talk about best practices, high yield strategies in education. And today we have a treat. We have legendary Mark Shanoff, who is the superintendent of Osceola School District. Mark, man, thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks, Addison. It's great to be here. This was a real highlight to be able to be invited onto your podcast. I mean, nothing's better than this.
Listen, man, I say this now. Me being out of superintendency, let's just say 15 months. It could be 16. I don't know who's counting, right?
Right.
There's two people I try to live through in this process, and that is you and Terry Connor, man. I couldn't be prouder for both of you of transitioning at the same time to school districts in Florida. You have both of you had a rich experience, but man, you're doing some really cool things in Osceola. You came in really good, strong foundation. Deborah did a really good job as a superintendent. But you've just started to evolve and take this thing and build upon it to create something special.
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, Deborah Pace, my predecessor, did an unbelievable job.
Awesome soup, man.
She is a great superintendent. She brought so much stability back to the district that was so desperately needed. And she put a great foundation in place for me to come in and be able to accelerate the work. And she's been nothing but supportive. We've got a great team in Osceola. I would say that the most important hires that I've made are the ones that I've put in schools. But
That's right.
Outside of that, it would be those that are on my leadership team. And I believe that it was important to kind of mix not just new folks, but also really allow those that understand the landscape of Osceola County to continue to develop there. And what we've really tried to do, especially given my background on the business side and on the school side, is really kind of redesign how we do our work, especially on the business side,
Sure.
and make sure that all of that is pointed inward towards our core business of student achievement. So we're doing a lot of work with alignment. We're doing a lot of work with, well, if we're going to invest in this business process in finance, if we're going to invest in this business process in facilities, how does that actually move the needle when it comes to student achievement? What benefit does it bring to us? Or is it just something that kind of operates as a benefit in a silo? And that's what we're trying to change.
Right.
And so we're trying to take essentially the industrial complex that is traditional large school districts, and we are trying to kind of turn that on its head and say, no, we're going to be much more agile. We're going to be cross-functional in the way that we do our business and make sure that no matter what happens, everybody plays a part in what the core business is.
Yeah, I mean, the cross-functionality, I think, is a brilliant move from your side. I mean, listen, you've lived in a world where you've unpacked and see that in a school district, we may have 1,200 to 1,500 different platforms, different initiatives go. I mean, like, it's just so much. So, paring that down and become more sophisticated, I think is the right thing to be able to do.
Yeah, so I think for us, we've really taken a hard look, especially coming out of ESSER funding, really trying to determine, after kind of flooding the district with all types of different, and by the way, Osceola is not unique to that.
Major proof of concept in the last 3 years with some additional funds.
Absolutely. Right? So what we've been able to do is we've been able to take a look at the academic return on investment on each one of those programs that we used ESSER COVID relief money for. And so in being able to kind of pare everything down, we were able to say, you know what, this worked really well. This is worth us investing our recurring dollars in because we've seen a return. This maybe not so much. Really what we came out with was a better understanding of the programs that produce high yield results for our kids. And really it's kind of reframing how we look at our contracts moving forward.
Right.
That really everything should be centered around performance-based contracts. And so, yes. And so at this point, that's where we really see K-12 moving, is we're going to reposition around performance-based contracts in the same way that we have performance-based evaluations in Florida. So why should we not be holding all of our contractors to that same standard?
Yeah, I think it becomes, that you bring a good point of it, bringing consistency for the matrix for how we evaluate leaders, teachers, whatever it may be, and then having the same accountability matrix for vendors that transition in. One thing that I learned from Nikolai and Alberto is that, any contract that we had that may be over $500,000 or more, every year they come in and they do an annual engagement with me and my cabinet to prove what's working, what's not, what we can do differently. And right on the spot, we would either extend the contract, modify the contract, or cancel the contract. And I think the organizational impact that you're talking about, bringing it all together and creating that accountability, is another layer and lens to that as you move forward. So I think it's solid.
It is, and it's showing support for our teachers and showing protection for our teachers. We don't want our teachers just going through the motions or just going to this random menu of products where it's like, hey, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, or we're going to try this, or we're going to try that. No, we're going to pare everything down to the stuff that we know works really well. Sure. And that's going to be the suite by which you go ahead and choose what's going to be dynamic for your learners. Because your learners this year are going to be different than your learners last year, and they're going to be learning.
Week to week, they're different learners, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we want it to be a much more dynamic experience, which means that our contracting process has to be entrepreneurial to allow our teachers and our principals to be entrepreneurial.
Your journey is a little bit non-traditional in a way. I mean, while being in education for a large number of years, and I think that, transition into I know you've had held different positions in the organization, but, you don't see a lot of chief information officers become superintendents. But the more I engage with you, the more that, you stay on par with the conversations of all the perspective from instructional, operations, whatever. I think it's helped you in that process.
Absolutely. So, you have to be able to speak different languages in the superintendent position. The traditional path.
I can't speak that language that you speak in technology. I can't. I mean, honestly, I'm an instructional leader. I can't do that.
Exactly. I mean, so I have a K-12 background. I was an elementary school teacher. I was an elementary assistant principal, elementary principal. Had the opportunity to move to middle school. So, made that leap from elementary to secondary, and then I had a chance to lead a high school.
Yeah, K-12.
K-12.
Not many people have that exposure.
No, and it is unique. And actually, when I began my assistant principal experience, I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to remain on the teaching and learning side. So I went back, I got my MBA, and really focused on ops management. Like, that was my focus when I was going through my MBA. Had the opportunity to get a chief operating officer position. I was approached in Volusia about going there and taking that on, and thankfully Scott Fritz gave me that opportunity, and I really flourished there and had a great experience working across all of those departments. Operations ends up becoming this hodgepodge where nothing else fits anywhere else.
Yeah, so it's yours.
So it's yours.
That's
and
right.
so, and you're constantly dealing in bad news. It's almost like you're a dean at a school. You're usually just handling all of the various problems that are occurring. Yeah, and it's a mental battle, but and then having the opportunity to transition into an IT role, and then through an unfortunate set of circumstances being elevated into a CIO position when our CIO in Orange County passed away, that kind of put me front and center. And I'm grateful that Maria Vasquez, superintendent in Orange County, great leader, had enough belief in me that I could go ahead and really make IT in Orange County much more accountable to the schools, and really kind of drive value of IT in the eyes of principals and teachers, and really flatten the organization in that respect. But being able to now move into a superintendent position and be able to speak all of those different languages, speak IT, speak operations, speak facilities, speak instruction, and it's I can code switch really, really quickly, but I also know where the impacts are for the non-teaching and learning side on teaching and learning, and create the sense of urgency on the non-teaching and learning side that the teaching and learning side lives in. And you can't have two different speeds within the same organization. You've got to have one speed, and it's got to be the speed at which students are expected to learn.
That's right.
And so that's been a shift, but we're doing it.
Listen, you're doing it masterful. The other side of it is, in different positions that you've held in K-12, the one thing that I learned is that you were in multiple districts.
Yes.
I moved into Hills. I was in Jacksonville for 18 years. Then I transitioned to Clay for 4. Then Hillsborough for 4. I think it's the best thing that I ever did as a leader. And many leaders want to try to stay internally and lead. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the more that they get out, the better opportunities and exposures they have. I mean, have you moving around from certain districts, what has that done for you professionally?
So it's definitely kind of broadened my horizons, that there is no single way of doing business that becomes the silver bullet for how K-12 should be led. That there are bits and pieces from everywhere that should become kind of the mosaic that a new superintendent should use to build kind of their vision of how they're going to lead a school district. But if you try to do that just through a single lens of one district, and you try to replicate that district somewhere else, or you try to do it within your own district without any sort of accounting of what is actually occurring in the space, you're not going to move your district forward. You're going to continue to make the same mistakes. You got to alter the playbook, and the only way to really alter the playbook is to see what's working elsewhere. So when you go work in another district, it's not just about going and implementing what you think is right. It's about actually surveying what's there, what's around, and watching and in taking and internalizing and saying, this is working, so I'm going to tuck that away.
Sure.
And that, I think, has been the biggest benefit. But the hardest part, Addison, you know this, because after spending 18 years in Duval and then going over to Clay, you already know that, you know, the biggest struggle is making that first initial leap.
It's hard, man. Like trying to get a family to understand this is what we want to do, moving, and you always know I was comfortable, but it's the best thing I ever did. I learned so much to being able to have those 3 spots. And I bring that up because for leaders that are watching or listening, it's okay to move to another district, to listen, to learn, to develop, to build your capacity and see how other organizations are being driven or being engaged. And I think that there's power in that. I mean, without a doubt, from all of my engagements with you, I think all of them have helped you strengthen who you are as a leader and be a mentor and a model for others.
Absolutely. And I encourage our leaders to I mean, all of our leaders have led in more than one district. And in order to sit on my leadership team, you really have to be somebody that's led in more than one district. And, you know, we have a few that are kind of homegrown,
sure,
but they may be kind of outliers in what they do. Yeah. And they may have a certain spirit that kind of matches mine, where, you know, they're into instructional risk taking, high risk, high reward, sure, type decisions, but more often than not in education, work out for the reward. That's right? I agree. So we like those folks. We like folks with the entrepreneurial spirit, but we also like folks that are coming in and saying, you know, I did this over here and it worked because. So knowing the landscape here and knowing the context here, this is how it might be able to be implemented here. And for all the aspiring leaders that are out there, if you want to get to the superintendency, you're probably going to have to jump districts.
I love that. That's right. I mean, it is what it is.
It is.
Last thing, and I'll close us out. You're having you're experiencing something in Osceola that a lot of the nation is not experiencing. We're talking about student growth. I mean, here we are, a district that, you know, you're 40,000. What do you got? How many students are in that?
There's 81,000 total.
Yeah, 81,000 students total in Osceola. You're growing. I mean, in what, next 5 years, whatever X amount of years, you're looking at potentially 100,000 students?
Yes. Yeah, within the next 5 years.
What's going on? Is it because you brought magic to Osceola here, man, in the last year and a half, and everybody's starting to come? Because everybody I speak to are consolidating and closing schools, brother, and you're building.
We cannot build fast enough. So I think that Osceola is just geographically, it's situated between two metropolitan areas that, quite honestly, I think are pricing out a lot of the real estate.
Makes sense.
And so people are looking for a more affordable alternative to Orlando and Tampa. They're also looking for affordable alternatives to other places in the country where things are just becoming too expensive. So right now, we kind of hit a sweet spot, I think, for many middle class families. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that as we're designing and building schools, we're designing and building schools around those kind of anchor organizational values that we subscribe to. And we can't compromise on design just in the name of price.
Right.
We need to make sure that we are aligning our buildings around what our values and what our expectations for the student learning experience are going to be. And if that means that we need malleable space, if we need teachers to be moving between rooms, if we need furniture that isn't stagnant but dynamic, so those are things that we consider, especially when we talk about what we want that learning experience to be like. Right. And so, yeah, we're building, we're building like crazy, but it allows us to be really creative about what we want our spaces to be, and then we market that.
What a perfect opportunity for innovation to continue to be your superpower and lead with it and create some really cool offerings that no one's seen before.
Right.
So awesome. Well,
thank you.
You know what? Thanks for being here today, dude. Really
thank you, Addison.
Man, as you hear from Osceola, public school district, great leader Mark Shanoff is going to be someone to watch in Princess Nation. Until next time, look forward to seeing you on Superintendents Unplugged in Deborah Davis.